ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna be showing you my analysis and how to trade demand zones correctly, like how to find entries, like to go from the higher time frame to the lower time frame, which is exactly like gonna lead you to actually mastering your entry points. You might have a good analysis, but without a good entry point, it sucks. So I'm gonna be showing y'all how to find good entry points and how to analyze the chart the correct way and to find the correct demand zone entries or supply zones entries. Let's get into it.
So yeah, we're back at it again, bro. This was the last highest point of the Bitcoin against the US dollar, and this is a supply zone. So now what we're trying to figure it out is a rejection. How does price reject? How do we actually catch a trade at a point where it leaves a spike or these pointy candles at the top? So how do we actually get to catch a trade at that point right there? That's what I'm trying to show y'all right now. So price moved from hold on. Price moved. This was the highest point right there on the 14th of July, and then price went from right there all the way down there because it had to. This is a whole gap. There's a gap. It's called an imbalance. When price is moving volatilely, it leaves gaps. I've got other videos where I'm explaining what gaps are. I'm just gonna show the thumbnail of those videos so you can check it out. Those are gaps. Price moved all the way down there so it could close the previous gap, but that's not what we here for. So price is currently touched that point, which was a supply zone where the supply, meaning the massive drop, started. So how do we actually catch a rejection at this point where price leaves a spike and then sweeps the available liquidity from that spike, from that blue or from that bullish engulfing candle, meaning when buys were taking over and then liquidity was left, and then liquidity sweep happened, encouraging the sell move that just recently happened right here with these orange or gold candles. So if we would have wanted to catch a trade right at this point, meaning is a sensitive level in terms of price action at 121.835,000. So if we wanted to make an entry point at that, we would have to scale down at the time frame that's the lowest, so we could actually see a market shift occurring. Meaning it's at this point. At the higher time frames, y'all see large candles, but at the lower time frame, it is where this whole move happens. You know what I'm saying? So this is the point 180. Well, I cannot be accurate with that, but we could have entered at this point if you wanted to see or catch a trade at the supply zone. I mean, catch a rejection trade at the supply zone. You know, that's how it is. When price bridges below at the supply zone, when price bridges below a sensitive level, which is at this point where you see that blue rectangular shaped line or whatever it is. When price breached below that, it had to reverse or be resisted by another sensitive level at 121k.3, and then it had to retest that level that it breached below to confirm it is a market shift. This was the lowest low out of a continuation move. This was the lowest low, and it breached under it to confirm that this is a market shift, meaning now the direction is changing from bullish to bearish. So it has to breach below and then retest. Once it retests and then produces another bearish candle, it is confirming that we're going for sales. So we could have caught a trade, as I'm telling you, at a supply zone, right at that point, and then target the gap closing to make it more realistic and more guaranteeable. For the price to hit take profit, it has to close this whole gap, this whole candle gap. So y'all gotta make your take profit more realistic. So if we would have caught it at that point after price retest, and then this is more realistically the point where you can set out your take profit to target gap closings, so it would have been a W trade, and that's how it works actually. Let me extend this to make it more make sense. That's what I'm saying. That's that sensitive zone right there. That was determined by that previous highest point, as I told you. So when price rejects, it has to cross below. If it's at that highest point, it has to cross below that sensitive zone and then retest it. If it didn't retest it, do not enter a trade. But if it does, you got it by any means to place an order, place a trade, and then just find a reasonable take profit point as to why you're willing to hold that long. Risk to rewards don't matter at this point. That's what you gotta do. Now same applies for a demand zone right now. What we're trying to see is what actually happened at this point. Price has been selling from all the way above, from 118.9k all the way down to maybe let's say 111 point maybe 0.9. But how do we actually catch or see it when this is a demand zone where demand kicked in, but price in and of itself has to after the demand zone has to retest and then prepare for that buy movement once there was a shift in the market structure in and of itself. So price went up, made the market shift because this was the last lower high, lower high, meaning this was a continuation of sales, and this was the last point when price bought a little and then retested and then broke this last lowest point to confirm a continuation, but price is still selling. But further on that, price failed to continue selling, and then this bullish movement broke at that price point, meaning it's a shift in structure. It's no longer sales that are in charge of the asset movement, meaning Bitcoin is no longer the sells, it's now the buy movement. But as to where the demand started, price has to retest at that price point, meaning it did right over here. So where or how could have we been caught a trade? You know what it is? We have to scale down to the 15-minute time frame to look at this, so it makes sense as to why or how or why we should engage in buy movements. This is a sensitive zone on the lower time frame. This was the exact lower point. This is a sensitive zone when price broke and it had a gap to close right there, and then price kept resisting at that point. So that's why I marked it blue, for me to make it a sensitive zone, and then that's where demand started. So when price rejected at that sensitive level, now we have to zoom in as to why price is now trying to buy. Should price break above that sensitive level, you have by all means to engage in a trade, bro. You ain't gotta be sleeping on this. Yeah, by all means to engage in a trade, and it should only be a reasonable trade if you targeting a gap close, or if you're targeting another supply zone, which would be right at this point where price was bullish for at least short term, and then price pushed down below when the rejection was right at this point. So that should be a supply zone, and this would be one of the two things. Number one, this gap close, you can see this big two candles, meaning gaps gotta be closed, and this is actually what happened when gaps closed. Price rejected at that point because gaps were closed, and it tried to pick up the momentum that was gained from when price reacted or rejected at the demand zone, and it got the momentum just for it to beat up the last highest point. It beat it up, and it also crossed above a sensitive zone, meaning above this blue rectangular line, and then liquidity was caused. But that's an explanation for another video about liquidity. So liquidity was caused, and then liquidity, sell side liquidity was swept, and then price crossed above, reaching that supply zone, but also beating it up, because at this whole trend it was just a market shift. But this is the lowest time frame. At the higher time frame, it was just a rejection, meaning two candles. This was a bearish candle, and then this was a bullish candle, meaning these are just two candles. Let me show you right now the 4-hour time frame. That's what I'm just saying right now. This is a bullish it's a bullish candle. I mean bearish candle. It's gold, and this is a bullish candle. I made a mistake. It's not one candle, but it's just, these are minimal, like a few candles compared to the lower time frame, and this is a 4-hour time frame. So that's it for the video. Thank you for watching. We'll meet at the top, bro.